Welcome, everybody, live from the paddock, brought to you by Blood Lubricants, our new sponsor of F1 America. Make sure to go check them out. And if you guys need anything, if you want to try anything, shoot us a message. We'll definitely get you guys hooked up. Jeff and everybody over at Blood, great guys, want to support them because they decided to support us. We got a lot to talk about. Brazil, Las Vegas, what's happening in Vegas? Let's start with Brazil. What were your thoughts on the race?
Yeah, I mean, my initial thoughts, so we talked a little bit about you made some changes going from Mercedes for fantasy. I am curious if Mercedes setup was really because we had another sprint, right? And as we know, out of the Austin sprint, because of not being able to have the practice, they ended up disqualifying Lewis because his floor was just worn down too much, right? So I'm curious if they went cautious on the setup, put the ride height a little bit higher, and then sacrificed speed and downforce.
Actually, I just thought about this as you were saying that. Like, what if, I don't know the actual reason why George retired, but what if they retired George because they had a different setup? Because George was actually outperforming Lewis all weekend long. Wonder if they retired him just to not have the DNQ. I don't know why if it would matter, but I just thought about that right now. I'm like, well, what if they just retired him because they're like, well, he's getting way more performance out of the car, and let's just have him come in so we don't have the embarrassment of another DNQ or DNF.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's also just like, why did they even retire the car? Like,
I never even saw. Like, next thing I knew, he was in the pits. Like, I never heard anything, never saw anything. I haven't seen any posts about it.
I just heard him say kind of like, all right, like bring in, like we're retiring the car, but like he wasn't ahead of Lewis on track.
No.
But he was behind him, and they like for most of the race they were kind of right there together. So I don't really know. We need to figure that out, I guess.
Maybe they didn't want to hurt Lewis's pride again because he was catching him. I don't know. I don't even like George, but yeah, I was super weird though because like in qualifying in free practice, Lewis was George. George was like they were like basically like 5 and 6.
They were real close, yeah.
And then when it came to and actually that's kind of why I ended up making my change going into the race because I wanted Lewis on my fantasy team, but I got scared and so I made a switch right at like the last second, maybe an hour before, and George ended up it paid off because George was doing better in the qualifying, doing better in the sprints, and I was like, oh wow, this is gonna work. And then obviously DNF, so that screwed up my points. I felt like I had a really good team, other than the Honey Badger definitely got botched too in the race, but yeah, lots of crazy stuff. Obviously, Charles spinning out on the formation lap. So, like, what do you do?
Yeah, it sounded like it was some sort of issue. It wasn't necessarily his fault, but I don't know, man. Like, what the hell happened?
I don't know. And then, I think I don't necessarily believe in like luck, right? But he's like, I saw a quote, "Why am I so unlucky?" or something like that.
Yeah, that's what he said as soon as it happened.
And I'm like, I don't even know how do you like unless there's something that happened to the car, like something broke, kind of like K-Mag's car in Mexico, how the suspension broke and he spins. Like unless there was something to do with that, or like did you just get lazy for a second on the formation lap and like you caught something and you didn't see it? I don't know. I don't know. I have to go back and watch the replay, but I just don't understand how that even happens. Like that's actually it's kind of comical too if you think about it. Like you're like the most elite form of racing and you spin out or
well, I mean, they're still human. They still make mistakes. They still, I mean, I go back to think about, Lewis in Azerbaijan and on the restart after Max crashed out. You're right.
At least that was in racing conditions, though.
Yeah, a lot more stress, a lot more things for sure. But it's just like, fuck, man, something you do how many times, and it's like second nature. But for whatever reason, something happened, you forgot.
Well, also like he was a title contender last year, so it's like, what the heck? And then he was a podium guy last year, and obviously he still got some podiums this year. But for him to do that, you're just it makes you kind of wonder. It's a head scratcher, and then
because it's like part of it is Ferrari's strategy's been shit, right? Their team hasn't been like pulling their heritage, so there's that. Like, so like. Sure, some of it's unlucky, but I kind of think you make your own luck too.
No, exactly.
Like how many times have you seen all those front runners still working on everything to make it even faster. Max is still in the sim, and maybe it translates, maybe it doesn't, but he's still progressing, even though he's the best of the best right now. You know, Lewis is always trying to help fine tune the car and help everybody in the factory to make the car better, you know? So like, but I don't know, man. I like Charles. I do. I like him. I think he's marketable. I think he's lovable. I think he's, you know, but the more that it goes on, I kind of think he's overrated even. And I don't like saying that, but it's kind of the writing's becoming on the wall.
I would agree with you 100%.
I think Sainz is driving fucking good.
I think Sainz is just as good, if not better, of a driver than Charles. I think Charles is definitely overhyped. Charles is the Ferrari's golden boy, like Max is to Red Bull.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why. Actually, I just saw a comment like yesterday or this morning before we recorded this, saying Charles is in contract negotiations again with Ferrari. And I'm like, why would Ferrari keep giving this guy a shot? Like, there's so many more people like I don't know, just throwing it out there. Like, why don't you go try to snatch up Sergio? Like, you know, he's proven he could drive.
Yeah.
So over the last couple of years, so it's like he was like a midfield guy because of his car, and then you throw him in a good car. So how many other guys are out there that are like midfield guys you throw in that car, put them on a 1-year deal?
Yeah,
it's not going to be any worse than what you're doing today. So I don't know. I think
he'll perform often.
Yeah.
But then he has little accidents like that, you know, and man, it's again, we're all human. Like they're fucking, just because they're elite doesn't mean they don't make mistakes. But I mean, that's also why they get paid a lot. You know, they get paid to not make those mistakes. And again, I don't know exactly what happened, but how many times have we seen it? Even like, all right, Monaco, he gets pole and then crashes the next lap. You know, like
the French GP where he was like leading the race and he blows it, or was it second or leading? I forgot. And then he like pushed it too much and spun.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get it. You got to be willing to push it and to get to that point. And you got to be willing to kind of turn your brain off and just like send it. But at the same time, it's kind of, you got to also know when it's not time to send it, as when you don't need to. And obviously this situation was not him sending it by no means, but there's definitely been time and time again he's made those mistakes. So it just makes you kind of question. That also makes me question. It makes you question Charles. It also makes you question Ferrari. Like, is Ferrari? The Ferrari fans are diehards, right? Mm-hmm. But like, are they ever going to get back to like Ferrari's winning heritage? And like, yes, Ferrari dominated forever, but Ferrari's probably has the most amount of money, right? Like they're like, there's no reason why they can't compete on Red Bulls as far as financially goes. Red Bulls and Mercedes. So like, how are they not? How have they not figured it out?
With the cost caps, like nobody can overspend,
right?
So
well, even without the cost caps, when Seb was there, they weren't winning.
Yeah.
So, and it's like, okay, without the cost caps there, when Mercedes was on a rampage of just winning everything, how did you not have a car that wasn't even close?
Yeah.
And then Red Bull was the next closest thing to them. It's like Ferrari's obviously been messing up for the last few years, and I mean, I'm going to hurt a lot of feelings saying that because Ferrari fans, but.
For instance, take a team like Williams, right? Like they have a lot of racing history, a lot of racing wins, and you know, huge kind of pedigree in that. But it was all mostly really early on when the cars were more mechanical and all of this, and the cost was different. Like, sure, I'm sure they still, you know, had a strong arm to get money to go racing
for sure,
but they were able to compete in that arena. Then now everything is aerodynamic and wind tunnel time and all these different things. And so it definitely takes more money and more skill. And maybe Ferrari used to be able to rely on their powertrains because they were fucking awesome. And now you have these other teams that are equally as good, if not like more, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you go back to say the 90s or even early 2000s, like the era was definitely different of any motorsport, right? Whether it's NASCAR, whether it's karting, whether it's your local stock car races, right?
Yeah.
If you and I don't know, maybe it has something to do with, I just thought about this as well, like maybe it has something to do with like Ferrari is building motors, right, for Haas, and then you know, like all these teams build powerhouses for the other teams or the trainees for the other teams. So it's like, okay, or like, are you starting to lose your quality now because you started pimping your stuff out, like, or like, you know, you started selling? So it's like, maybe you shouldn't sell anything, and then you could invest all that money, which I get, you're getting money from it.
Yeah,
it's not like you're you're not making money from it and it's just costing you. But like obviously something changed and your transmissions aren't nearly as good as your motors aren't as good because didn't Carlos or one of the Ferrari guys take a grid penalty because he took an extra motor more than allocated, right? One of them did, I thought, but I can't remember who.
Yeah, I know definitely they did last year for sure.
Yeah.
Well, so that kind of brings up like an interesting question, like just hearing you talk about that, where okay, so these teams like Mercedes who supply a bunch of powertrains, right, to other teams. So if they didn't, let's say like Honda, right, or Red Bull powertrains now,
right,
they only supply their own. They don't have to worry about another team, so they can rev it up as much as they want, really.
Yeah.
Where let's say like Mercedes, since they supply Williams, they supply McLaren, and they supply Aston Martin. Now maybe they have to manufacture an engine that has
a little less
capability for them to tweak it.
Yeah.
Like so it's got to come from the package less because all these other teams are going to have the same engine.
Then McLaren can bolt on what they want to bolt on.
Exactly.
They want this high flow intake, or they want this bigger turbo, or whatever
because
it is.
Anytime the engine gets an upgrade, all the teams get an upgrade.
I didn't think about that. So like Mercedes brings a motor upgrade package, so does McLaren, so does Williams.
Everybody gets an upgrade for the engine.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
There's variation, but I'm pretty sure there's something like that. Like if there's a boost in something,
right,
everybody gets,
say
they're
like
all running the same
weight
thing.
savings or something like that. Like say they're running a thinner block now. And so like everybody's going to get that updated block for the motor. So it's lighter weight. Okay. I didn't
so all those little things, like, and then each team can fine tune stuff.
Got it.
And that's going to be different. But so then that kind of poses, well, they're going to manufacture something that's going to be right. Because so for, let's say, reliability, right? Like, so Mercedes makes something with their engine, so it's more reliable. Everybody gets that new upgrade.
Right. Shocks me though. So like Ferrari makes their own power units, Mercedes makes their own power units. They're both car manufacturers. Why doesn't McLaren make their own power units? They're more than capable of doing it, unless there's something we don't know. And like McLaren, like daily drivers, like unless Mercedes is building their motors too. But it's like, okay, so you build supercars, you build fast cars. Why aren't you building like your own motors? I mean, maybe. Would that have changed? I wonder if that would have changed like the last couple of years, even when Ricardo was there, or even like the beginning of this year. Like if you guys were building your own motors, I think it's more so on the car setup wise and the car aerodynamics. But if say that was something they brought in house, would it have changed the results over the last say 5 years?
I mean, it probably would, right? Especially, let's say, remember when Red Bull was just starting with Honda, the reliability was kind of shit. They made up for it really fast. Like, but the reliability was not great at first.
But that's all Honda had to worry about, right? They're like, okay, this one team, we need to get them up to speed. We need to figure out what's going on. And so they were able to fix that really quick. Like, the first 2 races, they struggled. They had both.
Well, and I wonder if there's some sort of contract deals too, because Aston Martin, clearly a car manufacturer, they could make their own motors. But they were Racing Point before, which was not a car manufacturer. So and they ran Mercedes engines then. So did they have some sort of contract? That team is under contract for a certain amount of years to run those powertrains?
I mean, I would imagine everything's under contract for a multi-year deal, right? Unless basically the only thing that's probably not is like you're a driver, or that's on like a 1-year deal, or you're on like a trial basis, right? Like say, who was it? Like Ford coming in back as the trainees for Red Bull. That's next year, right? No, 26. Is that 26?
I think it's 26.
Or is that the Ford's getting their whole motors? They're going full motor.
I'm not sure.
I know they started separately. I think Ford's taking over everything, but then Ford's starting with the transmission first. I thought I saw that somewhere. So say it's next year, right? Ford's doing like their trial basically for the transmissions to make sure they're going to be reliable before they get into their full car. I'm sure there's like a legality or like some wording in their contracts too that said like, hey, if you don't perform in the first year, we can get out of it because clearly like it's a reliability issue or whatever. So
I don't know, man. It's interesting.
Lots of I would love to see it. Well, I would love to see like the Spark Notes version of a contract, right? Like all the big call outs, like, hey, if we don't finish 5 out of 8 races, we have the option to go look elsewhere for another manufacturer. Or if we aren't getting the support within this amount of time and you guys don't resolve it in this amount of time, we can XYZ. Which that has to be in there. Like at that caliber, like the contracts are probably so insane.
Well, because wasn't it RedBull used to have Renault powertrains?
Yeah, like way long ago. Like that was like when Mercedes was still winning, I think.
Yeah, like because
which it feels like so long ago, but it was only like
because Daniel went there.
Yeah.
Right. And they cut their contract. And so that relationship was really interesting.
Like, what do you think? Renault, are you implying that they were there because of Daniel? Or powertrains were there because of Daniel?
Oh, no. It's just kind of the irony of how that all kind of worked out. Like they took their driver and like they cut their deal with their engines, and it's always like these back end kind of dealings that you never really know what's going on.
I saw Renault was on somebody's logo this weekend after like one of the results.
Well, they're not even in Formula One anymore, right? They turned to Alpine. Alpine's a car manufacturer, and I think they have their own.
Alpine's a car manufacturer?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know
that. French company.
Okay. I didn't know that. Yeah, I didn't know that. I just thought it was just a new name and some brand.
Mm-hmm. And so I think they use Alpine engines, but nobody else on the grid does, right? Where Renault used to supply some of the other
might be
teams.
Alpine that has Renault, because I was looking at it. It said like the team name and then small. Like next to it said Renault next to it. So I wonder if it was Alpine. I don't know. Maybe they're still using.
Maybe they're still using their power unit then.
Yeah. Which is crazy though. It's like Renault. I wonder why they kind of got out of the racing altogether. Like obviously bigger money comes along and the teams are going to change all the
Honestly,
time.
They could even be parent companies.
Yeah.
Just, like
for sure.
I mean, Volkswagen owns fucking half of the cars, right?
Yeah. I actually saw a Renault on the freeway the other day. Like old. It was like
an old, right? Yeah.
It was like a 2010 like little SUV, and I was like, did that say what it said? Yeah. And I saw the logo. I'm like, oh shoot.
Was it right-hand drive?
No, it was not. I don't even know how this thing got here. I was like, where would you have bought that? So it was kind of funny to see a Renault here.
Yeah. Well, so then Alfa Romeo, which also car manufacturer, but they run Ferrari, it's turning into Audi. So is Audi going to keep Ferrari engines, or are they going to do their own engine? They're going to find somebody else.
Is that in 26 as well, I believe?
Yeah.
So they have one more year?
I think so.
Or no, two more.
Maybe.
2 more years. Jesus.
Or was it 24?
I don't remember actually.
They're coming in sooner than like Andretti, I believe.
Yeah, no, Andretti I think is 26.
Mm-hmm. I think Audi is maybe.
It's like a year. I think it's a year or two before. But then, what's his face supposed to go there? Who's that? I think Carlos is like supposed to go there.
Is he?
I think
somebody was talking about it.
There's a bigger name was like he basically pre-signed his contract to go there, and I was like, that was a big move. I think in 2025. I think it's Carlos.
That sounds right.
Yeah. So, which I'm curious how he'll do, because I mean you're at a race-winning team right now, or like potentially race-winning team right now, and you're gonna go to
and he's doing well. Like I think he's been outperforming Charles. Just I don't know where
on average
I don't know where their standings are. Like Charles maybe will out-qualify, but then he's not, sending it on race day in the same way. I think Carlos has been a lot more consistent.
I would say that's what I was about to say, is he's a lot more conservative driver versus
well, and I think we saw what was the race like. We saw just how intelligent his racing craft is.
Carlos is ahead of Charles.
Okay, that's what I thought.
In 6th. So I mean, just since I have it pulled up, we could just go over it. Obviously, Max wrapped it up. He's 524 points ahead. He could win this season and next season.
Yeah, like something like he has more points this season than Lewis last year and this year combined, something like that.
I didn't see that stat.
Yeah.
Sergio's 258, Lewis is 226. So not completely out of it, but he's definitely
2 races left. I think
he needs some luck on it. Lewis needs some luck to make some stuff happen.
with how Mercedes has been, they've been making good gains, but I don't think they're making that. Like Lewis would have to win both races, really.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, and Checo would have to finish like in
out of the points,
5 to 10 maybe, because 10th place you're only getting 1 point. So if he finishes and he makes up that big of a swing, but then so check this out: Fernando's now in 4th, and then Lando's in 5th, but they're only separated by 3 points. So that's a good battle for the top.
I think
5.
Lando will get him because
yeah,
just how they've been like. I think
the car is way better for sure.
Yeah, and I think Aston Martin had a good weekend. I don't think their car is.
It'll depend on who can adapt
right?
fastest in Vegas, really. Who can adapt to the track. That's if we
and I think it's going to be interesting because it's a night race. So, like, normally we'd think Vegas hot, but it's a night race. Wintertime is temperature is going to drop. It's going to be kind of cold. They've even like some of the racers were talking about how it's going to be tricky conditions because it's going to be colder.
Trying to get the temperature.
Yeah, just keeping tires.
But yeah, because the desert in the wintertime is cold. It's not like it's a hot place.
Yeah, and like even the asphalt doesn't maintain the heat like it.
Right. It
like
doesn't soak it in. Well, if it was during the day in the winter, it'd probably be way easier. But since it's nighttime during the winter, it's just like kind of a combination, which hopefully it'll even out the playing field a little bit. And
I think it's gonna be really kind of. I'm excited, but that's if the race doesn't get canceled.
Well, a lot of people can't extract the stuff out of extract the car, the energy out of the car, or the speed out of the car like other cars can, even though the temperature is colder. So I'm like hoping like deep down, I'm hoping that Red Bull like slows down because maybe the temperature isn't as good, so they can't get the tires there. But then maybe some other guys like McLaren perform, so it makes it for better racing. Is what I'm kind of getting.
Well, it'll be interesting because it's a new surface, right? Which means less friction, which also means harder to turn on the heat of the tires.
Yeah.
So here's a question that I had, and I think somebody else, like one of the commentators, had said it later on, but when they were doing it, I was questioning. Why didn't they put the hards on Lewis's car on his last pit? Because they so Mercedes was turning the tire temperature on much quicker than everybody else, but then they were losing it really fast.
They're degrading it, they couldn't get the tire to last.
Right. So they were really I don't know why they didn't put them on the hard tire. And then Lewis even said, I think we should have went on the hard, after a few laps later. And I was like, I thought they would have because of however, they still had a lot of laps left. And they were not doing great on the mediums. Why not at least try for a different strategy?
Yeah, I mean, you can only simulate.
I don't think anybody in the entire race put on a hard.
You can only simulate so much, right? Watching the race, you can only, in any race that for that matter, you can only simulate. The computer can simulate the race so much as the medium's going to be the optimal tire. But then when you get there, the computer can't determine this surface is wearing way faster than we thought.
Or the track temp is actually up higher than expected or anything, right?
So, I mean,
with it being a sprint, they didn't even, I don't think anybody throughout the practice or in the entire weekend even ran a hard.
No, Red Bulls did because they were saving their tires.
In the beginning?
Yeah. All of free practice?
Yeah.
Red Bull, that's the only thing they ran. And they were the commentators were saying well, this is kind of a big gamble because you don't know what your car's going to be in the race.
That's right.
Because you're not running your regular tires. And then McLaren's did really good in qualifying because they ran primarily hards. They did 5 to 8 laps on a medium. Or no. Yeah, it was on a medium. And then they did 1 lap on a soft. And then they were on a heater. And then they pulled straight into the pit. They didn't even put
the tire.
Yeah. And so they saved it for qualifying.
So I would have put Oscar at the top of the timesheets.
Yeah.
He was crushing sector 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Purple both. Yeah.
So it was kind of interesting to see that. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what's kind of great about any motorsport, right? Is that Lewis then should have called that out. Be like, hey, I want to I want to go hards and I don't want to do medium again.
Well,
and that's when you kind of have gut feeling, kind of like the claim to fame that Mazepin has. He puts on the wets 2 laps before everybody else does, and everybody's all over the place, and he makes up 5 positions, but he's still in 16th,
right?
At the Russian race. But it's at the end of the day, you're the driver, you should make that call.
Yeah, and how many times have we heard them? I know Lewis for sure is
he's been pretty vocal for sure.
He's vocal, which is he's the one commandeering the fucking ship, he's the one that feels what it feels like, and and he's got all those years of experience, so I think obviously the team trusts him too, but there are times when they overrule him. But I don't know why didn't he say I want to go hards? Is it because he didn't want to fucking say it on the radio transmission or transmission? Who cares?
Yeah,
all the other teams are going to see what you do anyway,
right? And then they're going to see the team roll out with it, and they're going to just look over and see it. But I would love to see kind of sitting on the pit wall and hearing. It's okay, are you, obviously everybody's on one channel and you hear it and stuff. How are you talking to each other, and then B, like how, like what's it coming in like? Is it like, oh, Lando's piping up, Lewis is piping up, oh, blah blah blah, and like I know some people say things, so it's like, can the other drivers hear that? Is it just the engineers that are hearing that? Like, who can hear what? You know?
Yeah,
what I mean?
right. Like, who's the spy for every team that's like deciphering all the code?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating, actually.
Which I think is weird that like I'm like, why can't they be on their own channels? I mean, I'm sure it's for safety. That's like the only thing that would make sense.
Yeah.
But like, why does it matter if like, okay, Red Bull's radio 1, Mercedes.
Well, then
2,
there's like one
3.
master channel, right? That goes out to everybody.
Yeah.
Like, of course they can make those channels, but well, and sure, like, so then the FIA can hear everything because they're regulating like stuff. So that sounds great, but
Yeah,
each team
well, the
can
FIA
hear
is
everybody else's
worthless still
transition.
because
So
like I'm so tired of everybody trying to police each other. Like you're a race car
Yeah.
driver, like in as much as I hate to say it, Lando's been really bad about it. There's been like 3 drivers that are so bad about it. Like, oh, he went off in this corner.
yeah,
I'm like, dude, just shut up and drive. George
Yeah.
is really bad.
Lewis sometimes,
Lewis
but I
can
feel
be
like
really bad.
I feel like Lewis is usually in rebuttal. Right, somebody's usually like Lando will call him out, and then it's like, okay, well then now I'm going to call you out.
Yeah, I would say that. Lando's been not like
bad.
Lando's been bad. George has been bad. Lewis can be
Max
at times.
used to be bad, but now he's in front of everybody. So
he's like, yeah, whatever.
It doesn't.
I heard it like once or twice this year, but I wasn't like really really bad.
It's not as bad as it was when the teams used to be able to talk directly to the FIA. Right now they can't do that.
They can't talk at all. Or is it only the engineer that can talk? Because then like they get noted. Well, no, because then
they have
obviously
to talk after the race, I think.
Well, they talk after the race, but then like the teams have to handle like, okay, you took that position not lawful.
Yeah,
you
like,
need to hand it back. Like that's kind of
I'm sure the FIA maybe, but I think the teams.
I don't know why you just like if you have anything questionable and you're clearly that much faster, just hand it back over. Like that's not that hard. Like there's one in Texas. I forgot who made a pass. I mean, it was really got pushed really wide. I think it was George. George went like really wide and like basically off the track to gain the position. And like it took him like 5 laps to be like, oh yeah, we need to give this back. I'm like, why wouldn't you just like immediately give it back? Like,
yeah, because by then you're losing all that progress.
Yeah, you might be pulling from him, but then now, okay, cool, you gained a second on him over the course of 5 laps, and now you got to go hand it back. So, or you're taking that penalty at the end of the race or whatever.
Yeah, I guess it could be a gamble, right? Like, yeah, I think I could get 5 seconds ahead of him.
I don't like how some penalties are served. Well, I guess it's catch-22. I kind of don't like how some are served at the end of the race, or they're just like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna investigate at the end of the race." I'm like, well, that's kind of jacked because like you do that to fill in the blank. It could be
but Logan. Like, if you're the driver, if you know you have a penalty, you're going to be driving differently than if you think you're safe.
Yeah.
So to investigate at the end of the race, you're like, well, I don't even know. Do I need to make up time? Do I need to change the strategy to try and
right? Do I need to drive the pit? Get away? Goodness gracious!
Right.
I swallowed like I think a dog fur or something. Jesus. Oh my god! Every time I go to talk, yeah, if like you're trying to run away from the penalty to make that gap, right? That's kind of what it comes down to. So
yeah, and as a fan too, it would be kind of nice to be able to see and kind of know like what to expect, right?
Yeah.
Instead, like, all right, you think everything's good, and then all of a sudden, 2 hours later, Lewis is disqualified. I'm like, what?
Yeah, selfishly, it's like for my fantasy. Like,
I
killed it today, and then you go back like an hour later, and you're like, wait, what? And like everything's ruined. So that's also a bummer too. And whether you're playing fantasy or you're just watching the race, you're like, oh yeah, my guys did really good today, and then you come to find out that they got dinked or they got 5-second penalty, so that dropped them out of the points. You're like, oh, now Lando's not even in top 5. It's this or Max DNQ'd, so Sergio gets a win. Like, what the heck? So that's a bummer. We hinted at it earlier. We could dive into it.
Yeah.
Is Las Vegas going to get canceled?
Yeah, right. And why? What is going on? Why?
I don't know. I'll throw it out there. I don't think it's going to get canceled. Yeah. That's a lot of money to have a race get canceled, especially basically the week of, or like 2 weeks before. Like, no way.
Yeah, it's not a safety concern. I think that's when like F1 and the FIA actually step in and say like, hey, things are unsafe, right? When they canceled the Italy race because of all the flooding and all that, like it was logistically they couldn't get in there. Now I don't know how much the race is actually dependent on the hospitality industry, because they all travel with their own shit.
Right.
And all of that production, I believe, is going to be most likely handled
in-house.
Yeah. So I think as far as the race is concerned, not an issue, but as far as maybe F1 wanting to make more money.
Is it hospitality or is it the hospital?
No, it's the hospitality
industry. Okay, I wasn't sure. For some reason,
that's
I thought
like
it was
all the hotel workers, all of the restaurant workers, all of the so they're all like this union is potentially going on strike, the biggest strike or like the biggest pay increase strike in history, I think, or at least history of hospitality. So they're wanting to get a huge increase. And I mean, look, rightfully so. This event, I think that, I mean, it's not ironic that they're choosing this event to have the strike.
Right.
Because this is bringing in a shit ton of people, a shit ton of money. And
every hotel in Vegas is going to be packed.
Yeah. And look, our economy is not the best right now.
No, for sure.
Like for us, like normal folk, it's kind of been stressful and a struggle. But the corporations are making record profits. What the fuck's going on, right?
The last 2 years since COVID, everybody's trying to beat those numbers, right? Like, and I deal with this in my job. It's like during COVID, everybody had these numbers that are on, like, they're out of control because of multiple factors: supply chain, freight, raw goods. Yeah. And then now all these companies are now chasing that same number that they're like, oh, because every year you got to beat the number. And it's like, well, I can't beat a number that was inflated so much the previous year. You got to like learn to take your L. Like, and that's what I've dealt with companies and I've told them that, like, we are out of the zone when it comes to whether it's pricing and our costs or whatever. Yeah. And so now with these big companies taking it, now they don't want to kind of shell it down and pay it forward, I guess. And
they want to take all the profits.
I get the reason why the strike would be happening, and then utilize this event to kind of like force their hand and to be like, okay, cool, you guys got to kind of nut up or shut up.
Yeah.
But
as the people, I think it's smart.
Because, smart play, for them to strategically plan.
Of course, absolutely. Why? But as a why do you have to use
like,
our event?
Yeah,
but I get it.
Or a football event or something. That nobody cares about.
Well, so the other interesting thing that I think we touched on it last episode too is I'm seeing all this advertising and shit now going for. Look, Vegas is like the most expensive Formula One race in history. And it's like some of the general admission, I want to say, is like double the price for general admission of Monaco, which is like the premier like race, right? So everything is inflated for ticket prices and all these things and all these packages. I'm actually going to do a full video on all the package options.
I actually got excited
for
about that because I saw some ticket options open up. Like,
so
about it, and I was like, oh, sick! Like, let me check it out. And then like half of them are sold out, half of them are like, you need a call to get pricing. I'm like, well, I'm not calling because I know that's going to be ungodly expensive. Right? Yeah.
Well, so now some of those are actually dropping, I think, in price because people aren't paying it.
Well, you think about it, so I don't know how many this event's going to hold, right? I mean, Texas held like 400,000 people. 400,000 in Vegas, like, if it's anywhere remotely close to that, like, I don't know what their grandstand capacity is, but people are just going to be there to be around it, right? Plus all the regular weekend goers that go to Vegas every weekend or just happen to be on vacation there, bachelorette parties, whatever. Vegas is going to be so stupidly packed.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, you think of every convention that you go there for
million people.
Yeah. You think of like,
I've been there. Hotel rooms looking, you can see track. Jen's brother was just there for SEMA. And even like he FaceTimed me because he's like, dude, we can see the track like from our hotel. Okay, put that 2 weeks later, that hotel room's going to be $10,000 a night.
So then crazy. You think about that. So think about SEMA and every other, and I've heard of SEMA, haven't been to it, but like I've been into Vegas for multiple conventions for work. I know my dad's been there for construction conventions. So I would imagine and how packed it is for some of these conventions. Some are big, some are tiny. I would say take every convention you could think of, throw it in Vegas all in one weekend. Like that's what it's going to be like.
But I will say, of all cities, Vegas is built for events.
You think so?
Oh, 100%, dude. All those hotels are specifically built to hold people.
Yeah, no.
All those huge convention centers, you know what I mean? Like, it's of one city, it's built for
entertaining.
Yeah.
Well, I just think, compared to other cities, right? Obviously, there's people that go to San Diego for vacation.
Yeah.
There's people that go to Miami to party or vacation. There's all that. And so yeah, that's why a lot of these events happen in Vegas,
Yeah.
convention wise, right?
Well, because so let's say like, okay, there's a huge event in Los Angeles, right?
Right.
Los Angeles is huge, it's sprawling, but there's a lot of people that do a lot of things there all the time.
Yeah.
Right. Where Vegas, most likely they're not going to have a ton of other events. I think there's a music festival that's going on at the same time to kind of all together.
Right.
That's what they do too, is they'll group stuff to bring everybody all at once.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of people that go to Vegas for work or go to, like certain people, but compared to a city like LA,
right,
like everybody there is just they're designed to help people for the event for the week.
Yeah. I see that.
So it's all built around that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, other cities do like kind of a one-off, like, oh, we're doing a music festival this weekend, or like, like Palm Springs always has Coachella and Stagecoach, and it's like, okay, that's their 2 big events a year, and then they bring in stuff, they plan for it, they prep for it. But Vegas is kind of like almost always ready to go.
Yeah, you don't have to set up tents, it's already there, right? Like it's all freestanding hotels and buildings.
Yeah,
so I think, but then you take all that hospitality away because that's the structure that's built there.
I mean, I have a sad truth that no matter what, when it comes down to paying bills and with how expensive everything is, people are still going to show up to work. Like, you can only go so long with being on strike, and I think a lot of people are going to cave. Not that I want to see that happen.
Well, but here's the thing: are they currently on strike now?
I don't know. I heard it was planned.
I think that's what it is,
planned.
right?
So like, okay, you're going to wait till the day.
So they're going they're going to work up until, and then be like, bye, and then, oof. So and then that leaves F1 kind of, I don't know.
Well, they, like you said, they have their own people, so it's just like, I think it's outside of the paddock, I guess.
Yeah, I think they're going to be fine, but
like, you're screwed.
It would be all the fans, I guess, right?
The fans, the people that are there for the weekend, or the people that are just happening to the bachelorette parties that are there. But
buy your groceries.
Last time we said go buy a bunch of toilet paper and shit, like nothing even happened. I was still able to get it anywhere I wanted.
Right. You can't eat toilet paper,
No.
I still don't know why you couldn't find it. Why are you buying fucking 1,000 rolls of toilet paper? I don't shit that much.
You're still allowed to go like outside the house, like,
dude. Yeah,
it was just
I don't know why that was the first thing people stockpiled.
I don't know.
I'll fucking take a shower and wipe my ass before I have to, like, I don't know.
Might get our sponsors canceled. So, but yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, like, depending on when they decide to go on strike, people will they're going to see how busy it is, and like, okay, think of every waitress or bottle girl tips, or whatever.
Tips are going to be,
half of them are all making like their money on their tips. If majority of their money on their tips, they're not going to care. They're going to see like, oh my God, all these people are here because everybody's going to be in Vegas. Everybody's going to be like, oh, cool, qualifying was sick today. Let's go party. Ferrari's on top. Like, yeah, we need to celebrate. So then they're going to go out and drink, or they're going to go get a bottle. They're going to do this.
F1 brings a lot of celebrity attention too.
Hopefully we'll see somebody.
I'm sure
exactly.
Vegas is going to be off the hook that way.
Yeah. So like, and then they're bringing in like Tiesto's DJing at the race and stuff like that. So it's like, there's already going to be so much shit going on that like, there's going to be some people that are like, yeah, I'm going to strike. Then there's other people like, man, I can make a shitload of money this weekend.
Yeah.
I'm going to suffer for the next 4 days, but I'm going to make a shitload of money. And it's going to be worth it. So it's like, I don't know. I think it could honestly go either way. It could plan out. It could work out great, or it's going to totally crumble right beneath everybody thinking the strike's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Time will
tell. Any idea about, we kind of touched on it a little bit, predictions for Vegas. I mean, obviously we know RedBull should be quick. Even thinking back to like Miami had a new surface, right? Like,
yeah,
they were pretty,
and street race.
Yeah,
I think RedBull. They're also just on form. I mean,
most dominant performance.
Race.
Yeah.
Didn't Sainz win one
race? Yeah, Sainz won that race.
Sainz won, like Red Bull's won every single race.
Yeah. Max was,
and by considerable margins.
Yeah. So
I don't think, barring some catastrophic event.
Yeah.
Like
they need a Grenada motor.
Yeah, and Max is
Grenada. They need to break the car essentially. It's for them to not, because even if he gets damage on the car. I still think
Did
he
you-
could drive forward. And
Did you hear Max almost crashed watching Checo and yeah, or a lot, yeah, Checo and a lot.
So he must have been on his cool down lap, and then he must have almost drove it into the wall or something like that.
Something, yeah. Well, like, you know, they were battling for quite a few laps.
Yeah, I guess
before the end.
like
So,
lap, yeah.
and Max is notorious for watching the fucking.
I think everybody is though. Alonso's like,
they all do. Yeah,
that was a great pass by Stroll. Tell him what's up. And I'm like, you're gonna mock Jesus down the back straight, and you're looking at the.
They're all looking at the jumbotron. Yeah.
Which I mean, if you think about it, like you kind of glance around. I know, like in other sports like Supercross and motocross, you kind of glance around. Like at least for motocross guys, you're looking at the timing, so you can kind of see how far ahead you are, like see where you're at on the board and stuff like that. Or so it's not nearly as.
And on a straightaway, you don't have to do it. You know, like you have, but you're still like going, 280 miles an hour down the straight. It's like that 2 miles is, or not even right. A mile long straight is pretty fast.
I don't even think I've seen F1 car go 280. I think I've seen 220 was the fastest.
No, maybe
last year or 2 years ago.
Yeah,
I think they were getting a little faster. I think this car's a little slower. I think this year I think the fastest it was like 210, 220.
Yeah, probably.
But I know your figure of speech. I mean, for honestly the rest of other than first place, other than the one Red Bull being in the top 3, I'm curious what's gonna happen. I mean, Sergio was definitely way better this weekend. Maybe he channeled his inner Latin roots and was able to clutch it up for the sake of, since he blew his load in Mexico. But
yeah, I think he has potential to do good if the car suits his driving. You know, I think that's the biggest thing for him. I don't think it's necessarily him. I think it's that he's not meshing with that car. Yeah, like Max is.
Yeah, I think, and we kind of beat the dead horse on that one. I think. I mean, I think McLaren's could be really good. Obviously, I think Mercedes is kind of given up based on the radio messages from Toto to Blue Air.
Right, like.
I don't know if I like how
this car doesn't deserve a race win.
Yeah.
Like, man, I've always been a Toto fan. I like, but that was kind of like, at what point are you gonna be like? I mean, it just seemed really negative.
Yeah, no, for sure. And at this point, though, like, okay, set your setting to absolute lowest setting. Anyways, if you're gonna get DNF'd or DQ'd or whatever, it's like, you might as well just send it and go for the best setting and get what you can out of the car. Like, you only got 2 races left. Like, drop that bitch to the floor and drive it. Like, you have nothing to lose. Okay, you lose third in the champion and the title, which
and there's dude. So here's the other thing, right? Is Mercedes, like Toto's.
I mean, he's got like at least a race between him and fourth, for sure. So
I think Lewis will. I don't know that Lewis will beat Checo for second, but I think Lewis will get third comfortably.
He should, yeah. So at that point, just start setting your car up to get the best you can out of the car.
For Mercedes having a ship box, they're comfortably in second in the fucking championship.
In the manufacturers?
Yeah. So it's not like, okay, you have like, we have to remember the standard that they hold to for themselves, right? Like they're used to winning 8 straight championships.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, for them, this is a shit box. It's still a second place fucking championship car right now.
Well, yes, I would agree with that. But I mean, okay, so let's talk about this. McLaren comes on form at the beginning of the season. They would be in a world of reckoning when it comes to
if Aston Martin would have stayed the same pace, they
you would have a
right
3 or 4 car battle for second place essentially.
Dude, it could have been great.
But like Lando and Piastri were not anywhere near like the top 10 in points, and now Lando's in fourth, fifth, right?
Yeah,
and Oscar's in the top 10. Which actually I was looking at the points, and it's funny that there's 22 drivers in the field, but because De Vries got canned, and then the other one? De Vries and Logan.
I was gonna say Lawson.
Oh, Lawson. Yeah, that was like Lawson with 2 points. Like that's gangster. Lawson Daniels in 16th for not missing.
Lawson has more championship points racing 2 races than
Logan,
De Vries and Logan, right?
Kevin not doing great. Nico doing all right, but
Ricardo stepped it up, man.
Yeah, no, I mean Ricardo doesn't drive half the year.
I mean, he's only had a couple races too.
Yeah, so
because he didn't get thrown until halfway through the season,
and then he broke his hand.
So he's only had a handful of races, like
which all those points came from one race, 2 races.
Sure,
like a qualifying session and
Yeah.
Or a sprint and so.
So I mean, Mercedes has been consistent. Other than this DNF, whatever, I don't know that they even had a fucking car issue. It's like they just decided to pull them in. I don't know. Outside of that, like their car's been pretty bulletproof. It hasn't been the fastest,
right.
but it's been really reliable.
You're faster than half the grid.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Like,
you're still second in the fucking championship. Like maybe for your high standards, it doesn't deserve a race win, but
I think.
I think Toto's also just trying to tell Lewis, like, look, we know that you're driving really well still, even though the results aren't there.
It's not like don't worry, we're not going to cane you because
the car, it's not you. Like,
versus other sports, like, oh, you're not winning, like, get fired, get gone. I'm just hypothetical. I'm curious who they would get a snatch up if for some reason they did fire, Lewis at the end of the year. Who goes to Mercedes then?
I don't know. I would they throw Mick in? Would they give him another shot and just a better car?
That'd be pretty sick, actually.
I'd love to see it because I like Mick. I just don't know. I don't know that
he'd drive that much better.
Yeah, I don't know that he drove any better than Logan's driving for Williams.
True, I would agree.
I mean, him and he drove better than Mazepin, but
yeah, for sure.
Both were crashing all the fucking time.
No, well, I think Formula One's the only one that actually cares about the constructors. Like in other motorsports, like it's not nearly as popular.
Yeah.
I know a couple years ago or last year, they tried to make it popular in motocross. And I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, obviously you're trying to be like Formula One, but
yeah,
why'd you all of a sudden feel the need to throw a constructor or manufacturer cup in there? Like nobody cares and then it's all depend in motocross is totally different too, because they'll take all the points anybody gets, right? So it's not just factory Honda, it's everybody that's on a Honda, everybody else on Cali.
So that's even
that 1 year Honda won it, but like I think half the field like
was on a Honda.
There's that. Like Honda was paying a lot of contingency, so that's all the privateer guys. Basically, 10th or 12th through 22nd is going to determine where you're racking up a lot of your points. Like, you're going to have your star guys racking up your big points, your big chunks. But then if you got a guy in 15th that gets 3 points and a guy, but you have basically 12th from 22nd locked up, you're going to make up just as many points. Like I remember 1 year Cowie was paying out like the best contingency. So Cowie had like tons of bikes in the every weekend. Like you saw half the field is green and you're like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah. Well, it would be like, oh, okay, Mercedes supplies Aston Martin. It would be them getting all of their points.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
Just dumb.
Yeah,
that's just dumb. Well, like what's interesting and maybe a difference between like motocross versus F1 or even car racing, right, is how much variation is there on the bikes?
Oh, I mean, there's tons of variation. Like every rider has their own style. Like Kenny's had a shock setup and like Chase will go try it and Chase is like, no, that doesn't vibe with me. Or like whoever the guys, whether it's
but it's more about like Chase, I think the riders
riders
highlighted because like I don't know, they have so much more opportunity to shine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or not versus I don't know if you're all driving a spec car.
Yeah, I mean it'd be interesting to see if like they did a spec race, like everybody gets the same bike, which that's kind of like what they do in America versus like MXGP. MXGP, like you can make custom parts and be like, if this works, cool. Like the Euro bikes are super sick. Yeah. They have like the craziest trickiest shit, but then you come here, everything has to be like 75% production, I guess, is it's something along those lines. It has a certain percentage of it has to be production. So like they can't,
which is like stock that you and I could get, right?
Yeah. We could go to the store and buy the bike, the suspension, blah, blah, blah. But there's still some stuff like in certain suspension components. Like I've ridden a factory Showa suspension that was weighted for a guy that's 30 pounds lighter than me. And I still couldn't bottom it out. And it was the best suspension I've ever rode. It was for my grandpa. And he had a connection at Honda. And it was like the sickest setup. I rode it 5 years ago. And I gained probably 40 pounds since the last time he's rode that bike. And I'm like, dude, this thing is sick. And then I go get suspension valve for me for my weight. And it feels okay, but it doesn't feel nearly as good as that. So it's just crazy on like the good components you can get from like the factory.
Yeah.
versus like, yeah, you could go buy what they call a kit, but it's not going to be the same stuff Jason Anderson's riding or Jet Lawrence is riding or Ricky Carmichael rode. They definitely have a secret sauce. Like I think I heard Stewart's suspension was like worth like over $100,000 when he was racing at Factory Cali because it had such like good shit in it.
That's crazy.
So
right?
Yeah, no,
you go buy a bike brand new for 12, right?
Yeah, nowadays,
Back in that setup.
Back in that then,
5, 8.
Yeah, you could get a brand new 450 for $6,000 and then dump, whatever you wanted into it. Which I think an A kit now, if you want to do an A kit, it's like $10,000, $8 to $10,000. So you're buying basically another bike to put bolt on it. But what sucks about an A kit though is like it's so stiff and rigid. Like unless you're fast and riding it fast, it is miserable to ride. So it's like, yeah, it's cool. You could say you have a kit, but the suspension is not like, unless you can ride to the caliber of it.
Yeah.
Like even Zach said, like, he's like, I don't even like a kit because it's so like hard. It's so like hard on you and it's hard to ride.
Yeah.
So, well, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, man, I think that's pretty good. Again, thanks. Big shout out to our sponsor, Blood Lubricants. Love that the channel's growing. Everything's due to you guys, the fans. So just keep giving us feedback. Excited for the season to start winding down, and I think I'll be getting a little bit more creative to try and still bring you guys videos and some interesting stuff during the off season, just to kind of offset and just staying current on any news and things that are coming on. So there's always updates with Cadillac coming in and different stuff. So. Yeah.
Do you have any official start date for next year's season?
I'm sure there is one. I haven't looked.
Okay. I was just curious because I'm like, how long is our off season gonna be?
I think it's what?
3 months?
February?
Was that testing is February?
I think so.
And then I think the racing this year racing started in March.
So that would be my guess. Like, because Abu Dhabi's still in end of November.
Yes. No. Yeah.
No, December, early December, maybe.
I could look. That'd be a good idea. Let me see.
Yeah.
Racing. November 24th to 26th.
Okay, yeah.
Is that Thanksgiving weekend?
It is for us. Yeah, it is for us.
Wow.
So yeah, we'll have December, January. Look and see if they have a.
The race is at 6 a.m.
Start of next year.
It doesn't. I don't have anything for next year yet.
No. Okay. We'll have to look.
Cool.
I'm sure it's going to be like preseason testing February. Barcelona probably. So awesome, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks, Blood Lubricants.
Thank you guys for supporting us. We'll talk to you later. Cheers.